Welcome back to the series. This is part 2 of the 8-part series that hopefully I'll finish eventually. Tier 2 was actually really interesting, outside of maybe one entry, and this time I didn't have any creepypastas or ARGs that I accidentally covered. I don't really have much to say that won't spoil the video, so are you ready for some weird mysteries? Then let's get this video started! Pretend there's a clever transition here. I cannot think of anything to save my life with a name like this. 11B-X-1371 is an odd video that was uploaded in 2015 that has some fucked up audio and a man in a plague doctor outfit that you might know as Birdman. The video itself is just kind of something weird, or even creepy depending on who you ask. But there's quite a bit to this. The video would gather attention after a man named Johnny K, missing an N, would receive a DVD containing this video in his mailbox. Johnny didn't try very hard at figuring out what this headache-inducing mess was, but he did make a blog post about it on his website, gadgetzz.com. So you know what? You did good enough, Johnny. This blog post is the easiest source of information regarding this entry, as Johnny K was really interested in seeing this mystery solved, and would post updates with practically anything people emailed him about or he saw online. There's even an update here just showing us someone's Halloween costume of the guy. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. Early in the search, people on the shithole website would pretty quickly discover some weird things about this video. Pulling up a spectrogram of this video's audio brings up some weird messages and images. Like that one Japanese sentence everyone was obsessed with saying in the mid-2010s. And, gore. Yeah, there's pictures of, well, bodies, with some pretty messed up things done to them in the spectrogram, but I'll get back to that later. There would also be a discovery made that the blog post on gadgetzz.com was not the first person to post this video online. There's a couple of uploads of this video on YouTube, one by Parker White and one by AETBX. AETBX uploaded this video back in May of 2015, a whole 5 months before Johnny K would make his blog post. So maybe there's something different with this video, or at least we could get some information from AETBX. In an interview with the Washington Post, I don't know why they'd publish anything related to something like this, AETBX, who only identifies himself as Daniel from Spain, claims that he was also sent this video by mail, but it was by email instead of physical mail, so no one cares because you don't have a physical copy. Daniel said that the person he received it from found it on a park bench, which is the exact same way another user on 4chan said that they had found this video as well. So we know that the video goes back as far as May of 2015, but that isn't very important honestly. It's more important to figure out what the hell this video is supposed to be, which there were quite a few theories. Some other messages were found in the video by translating Morse code found somewhere in the video. I don't know, I cannot hear any Morse code in this piece of shit. There's a message here that translates to red lips like 10th, there's GPS coordinates that lead to the White House, and another message that was encrypted like it was written with an Enigma M4. That message says, "Complacent are the weak, stand and fight with us, take down the black beast, kill his disease, or fall with the rest." Now, the second and third message don't seem nearly as cryptic as the first, so maybe we could just take them at face value. But what the hell does red lips like 10th mean? Well, it's actually an anagram for kill the president, which makes me realize there's probably going to be a lot of messages that are more relevant to the modern day throughout this iceberg. These messages clearly have a theme here, and eventually people theorized that this could be a terrorist threat against Barack Obama, which, when you put it all together, it makes the Black Beast part sound really racist. Another theory relates to the gruesome images found within the spectrogram, as people thought that the creator was some kind of serial killer. There's not much to back this theory, but it's still something people kept in mind. And the theory that I completely believe in is that this video is a marketing scheme for Skrillex. Okay, I know that sounds insane. Well, that's because it is. But there's some pretty funny coincidences that make this somewhat believable, at least for a second. So back in late 2015, not long after the initial blog post on gadgets.com, Skrillex would remix a song called Red Lips and post about it on Twitter. Red Lips like 10th made a few people think that it's possibly some weird form of marketing, pointing to how other electronics have also hidden things in spectrograms before, like Aphex Twin. Shout out Tristan, that's his favorite artist. This theory also stems from the time that Skrillex had all of his equipment stolen a few years prior from his hotel room in Italy, and how it wouldn't be out of the question that a disc could have been among what was stolen. Now, this is the theory we should follow, and we should just say that this mystery is solved. Some other things about the video would be discovered, like where the video was recorded, and some other messages that I don't think really have any relevance unless I'm missing something. The video was confirmed to have been recorded in Poland after an intensive search where people had to identify the trees seen in the background and triangulate the way the wind was blowing as seen in the background of the video.
What the fuck I'm thinking about?
I also just made all of that up. The person who identified the building really just put in as much effort as Johnny did. We already knew that the mail came from Poland from Johnny showing us the envelope it arrived in, and clear as day you could see Polish stamps on it. So all this person did was search on Polish Google for abandoned estate with trees, and would you look at that, that's really all he had to do. There was also a message hidden in hexadecimal code that translates to, "A new order is on the rise. You will join or you will fall. The virus has spread too far. It must be stopped. We will dike it at the root. 13 Ani 50 will burn." Which sounds about right considering the Plague Doctor outfit. There's also a lot of binary messages to go over. Like one in the spectrogram that translates to "you still have 1 year or less," and both the title and description of the AETBX upload. Speaking of AETBX, this guy is a total fraud and has done nothing to throw people off with the video title and description, which translates to muerte and te queda un año menos, respectively meaning death and you have 1 less year. Yeah, I probably got that right. Remember the gore images we found in the spectrogram from earlier? Well, the origins of those images were found, and it throws the whole serial killer theory out the window. The images originate from everything from movies, to stock photos, to paintings, and... someone get the theory we just threw out back, because one of these photos is from an actual crime scene. So the creator probably isn't a serial killer, which is a nice bit of relief, because at least now we know we're just dealing with a racist terrorist Skrillex fan. Amidst all of this theory crafting, however, a man by the name of Parker Warner Wright would step up claiming to be the creator of the video. But who really cares? There's been like a million of these people now. Oh wait, this guy's actually providing evidence that he made it, and answering any questions about the video. Parker Warner Wright, possibly related to the Parker Wright mentioned earlier, would end up showing off what he claimed to be the original mask worn for the video. But it's brown. So how can it even be— oh shit, that's the same exact mark! So yeah, it's pretty believable that Parker Warner Wright is the guy who made this video. But why send it to some random guy who runs a technology blog? Well, in his own words, Johnny K won the business card lottery. And Parker didn't choose a bigger outlet because, well, he just simply didn't have their business cards. Parker would also come out and plainly say that this whole thing was an art project. Which, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. It does have that vibe in my opinion. But what about the terrorist threats? Where the hell did that come from? Well, apparently he moved to Poland because he thought that the United States betrayed him, whatever that means. Other than that, I have no clue what those messages are supposed to mean other than to kill Barack Obama. There's also a second video that I don't care to talk about because at this point, we know it's an art project and the mystery is kind of just gone. The second video just kind of feels like, oh, can you decrypt this? Remember how I used to be scary and mysterious? Come on, decrypt me, what are you doing? But you know what? At least the first video has somewhat of an ending I feel fine with, even if it is a little anticlimactic. Okay, wait, I think I have something for this. So this one dates quite back a bit, all the way to 1996, which is why I don't have a file to open to show you. It being from 1996 means it's only the third oldest entry in this tier. Just give me a minute to pop this in real quick. The Markovian Parallax Denigrate is a bunch of messages that were uploaded to Usenet back in the aforementioned year. If you don't know what Usenet is, it's not very important, but it's basically just the internet before the internet. Usenet was like a bunch of message boards that people would post onto just to talk to others. Not too unlike what we have today. And just like in the modern era, Usenet had to deal with spam posts. Like in 1994, where two lawyers would spam the living hell out of discussion groups, telling people to buy their immigration services. In 1996, there were reportedly hundreds of posts made that were complete nothing burgers, although I'll never be able to confirm that number because there's only like 2 of them archived from back then. If you're curious to hear what the messages even contained, let me read them out to you really quickly. Jitterbugging McKinley, Abe break Newtonian, inferring, call, update, Cohen, error, collaborate, sports writing, yeah, it's pretty damn meaningless. But that wouldn't stop people from trying to make something out of it. Back in 1996, people didn't really care too much to discuss what it was, but that might have been in due part to how the world was switching over to the more modern internet not too long after. Even once everyone was connected through the internet, however, there was still almost no one who cared to even mention it. That would be the case until November 2nd of 2012, when an article written by Kevin Morris for the Daily Dot would bring it up once again. There would be a resurgence in popularity over this odd internet mystery. Well, I guess resurgence would be the wrong word here, as it wasn't really popular before the article was released. Just to clear something up, however, some articles that read about the Markovian Parallax Denigrate claim that all the posts had the same subject line of Markovian Parallax Denigrate, which is not true, as a single Wikipedia search disproves this very quickly. Still though, what do these messages even mean? Some people think there's some kind of code hidden within the message, which is like the most boring theory ever and gives me nothing to talk about to elongate this video. Other people thought that this was some kind of chatbot, which makes sense until you remember this was 1996. This theory comes from the name Markovian Parallax Denigrate. What is a Markovian Parallax Denigrate, you ask? Well, I can't tell you what a parallax denigrate is, but I could tell you what Markovian means. The word Markovian is often used to refer to a Markov chain, a process that sees use when programming chatbots. Trying to explain a Markov chain in simple terms is way out of my expertise. I like weird stuff, not useful stuff. So I'm just gonna be lazy and I'm gonna read you the Wikipedia definition. Hope you understand. A Markov chain is a type of Markov process that has either a discrete state space or a discrete index set, often representing time. But the precise definition of a Markov chain varies. For example, it's common to define a Markov chain as a Markov process in either discrete or continuous time with a countable state space, thus regardless of the nature of time, but it is also common to define a Markov chain as having discrete time in either countable or continuous state space, thus regardless of the state space. You got all that? Good, because I have no idea what I just said. Now, this theory seems plausible until you remember that this was 1996. So I doubt someone would understand how to program something like a chatbot that could post on its own on Usenet. I mean, I could be wrong, and honestly I would love to be wrong because that's a way cooler ending than what I think is most likely. Another theory is that this was just the work of an internet troll just spamming for the fun of it. This theory could also be true, as internet trolls back then are nothing like the new age trolls we have now. But it also, once again, doesn't really give me anything to work with. I mean, literally anyone could post something like that to a message board. I know that you have probably just pressed the autofill options on your phone just to see what it types before. This is literally just an ancient form of that. Last theory, and the one that I personally believe, is that this whole thing is being blown out of proportion just for it to be jack shit. Yeah, enough with all these theories of it possibly being secret messages or chatbots. Let's just be honest, it's probably just nothing or just a troll who posted random bullshit. I don't even know why this is on the rabbit hole iceberg anyways. This is more just like a general internet mystery, as it doesn't really go anywhere because there's nothing besides the messages and Markovian possibly referring to Markov processes. I mean, it's interesting regardless in my opinion, but not exactly a rabbit hole. Seriously, I wrote the script for this segment in like 30 minutes while the first one took me a whole day. Okay, so this entry really lives up to its name because the mystery really is immortal. This thing is almost as old as me and we still don't know who wrote it. My Immortal is a pretty popular piece of fanfiction, not because it's amazing or anything, but the complete opposite of that. It's a Harry Potter fanfiction that is notorious for being complete garbage in so many ways. Major mischaracterization, an obvious self-insert MC, And what everyone knows this piece of junk for, the over 5,000 spelling errors throughout the entire thing. Now, as for who the authors are, is where the real mystery starts. So far, we only have a couple of names that might not even be real or linked to anyone. Tara Gillespie and Raven, last name unknown, are the only real names connected to My Immortal. Unless you want to believe that someone named their child Bloody Wrist 666 and Bloody Tears 666. So, with Google turning up nothing but the Wikipedia page for My Immortal, we turn to the only thing we have left, the fanfiction itself, of course. We could try to narrow down the search using some information provided by Tara herself in the author's notes section of each chapter. Most of it is just Tara yelling at negative reviews, but she mentions a lot that My Chemical Romance rocks, and that's a good enough spot to stop searching for me. I don't care to look for a random MCR enjoyer. Unless you're literally omnipotent, I don't think you'll ever be able to find a person just based off of writing habits alone. And also because this whole thing was probably written as a joke, at least I think so. I know it was published in 2006, right at the era of scene culture, but I do not remember anyone going this far with misspelling words. The second word in the fanfiction is fangs, kinda sounding like thanks. Now, I wasn't really conscious enough to even know what a scene culture is, but not once have I ever seen someone spell thanks this way outside of this fanfiction. Even if you look at the random things Tara puts in the author notes that she says she likes, I think it's still impossible to narrow the search down enough. I can name plenty of girls who are gothic, like MCR, and are possibly satanic, and hell, you probably can too. This hasn't stopped people from noticing similarities though, mostly from the writing style. You are not going to pick out two alt-scene gothic girls from the endless sea of them and tell me that they're the authors. It's not possible. But there was this one book called Handbook for Mortals, written by Lani Sarum, that seemed to have a somewhat similar style of writing to My Immortal, even though she isn't the author. This book would probably have never been noticed if Lani Sarum didn't artificially raise its ranking on the New York Times bestseller list. But this does lead to another potential lead. The only issue is that she doesn't really have much proof. Most of her proof was going to be in a memoir she was going to publish called Under the Same Stars, The Search for My Brother and the True Story of My Immortal, in occasional Tumblr posts and a legal investigation from her own publishers, Macmillan Publishers. She claimed many things, like being Native American, being put in foster care as a child, being abused, being forced into some cheese pizza, but the only claim that matters here is that she says she was one of the writers of My Immortal. I'll just cut to the chase, as most of what happens after is just Rose Christo saying she wrote My Immortal and Lani Sarum did not write My Immortal, and even managed to get her brother to back her up on the claim that she was one of the authors. But what her brother didn't support her on was every single one of her other claims. Meaning she was never abused, never put into foster care, never forced to eat cheese pizza, and second most importantly, she is not Native American. I think that this alone is enough to confirm she's just bullshitting us all and that she didn't write My Immortal. While all of this drama over Rose Christo was going down, there's this guy who claimed that Tara had an IMDb page back when they had message boards, and that her bio had some information on her interests, so maybe finding the needle in a haystack isn't still out of the question. Never mind, it's mostly stuff we already know. And the stuff we didn't know just makes her even more generic and impossible to pick out. I don't think this will ever be solved because, like I said earlier, it's impossible to distinguish the author from the sea of goth scene girls that were active in the mid-2000s. Wait a second. Mid-2000s, emo, into rock music. Holy shit, I think I just solved it, you guys. The writer for My Immortal can be none other than Amy Lee from Evanescence. Okay, so let's bring the beat back down for a second and talk about something much more lighthearted than someone pretending to be a victim of child abuse. Yvette's Bridal Formal is a website that is insanely poorly designed. Half of the time I've been on this website has been dedicated to finding my cursor. Seriously, I think this website puts arngrin.net to shame. So this website is pretty obviously a modern art piece, and if you don't think so, well, you just don't get it. Outside of the very polished and easy on the eyes design of the front page, there's also a lot of other links here, and god damn it, stop downloading music for the love of Christ! There's stuff you would probably expect to be on here, like a map of the store's location, some examples of the stunning models that walk out of the place, and an apple pie recipe. But there's plenty of things that you wouldn't expect to be on a website dedicated to a bridal dress store, like pictures of blender models, stories about alien abductions, and an apple pie recipe. It's really easy to just get lost in the endless sea of links on this website, and is the reason that I'm taking so long to write this script, and definitely not that icebergcharts.com finally went down, and I have no assistance with finding information on entries anymore. Rest in peace. So this website is really weirdly, amazingly designed, and has a bunch of random pages linked. So what? Well, that's what I'm wondering too. So let's go on the internet and find out. Now would you look at that, at least someone agrees with me. So a few people who have lived near the area ended up driving to the store and talked to the owner to see what the hell the website was. Except I assume the store owners hate being asked about it because they had to frame themselves as writers for an online magazine that were looking to investigate the link between the US government and aliens. So I think it's a little obvious that someone tried asking about it, clearly, and was shut down for doing so. Okay, so there's also a bunch of rumors that I've seen regarding this website claiming the person who created the website is related to the owner of the store and has mental issues. Now, I could see where the mental issues part comes from, but I can't find anything that even hints at the website developer and the store owner being related. The man that developed the site, however, Sean Terrence Best, was contacted about the website and was much nicer than the owner of the store. Contrary to what the rumors say, Sean claims that the store hired him to make a website for them and says nothing about begging to help his mom out with the store. Once the website was created, apparently the owners weren't pleased at all and let him go. After changing their whole website to the product they weren't pleased with, of course. That's pretty much Sean's whole story. There's really too many links for me to cover on this website unless I want the segment to be 30 minutes long. So I'll leave it to you to find meaning in all the pages on Yvette's bridalformal.p1r8.net. Okay, so first things first, don't visit this website. I tried looking on there to do research, and I was immediately bombarded with insanely loud music and elephant penises. I think the guy who owns this domain has actually just lost it, and I doubt the page has changed since. So, South 32 is a lot of things. It's a company, it's a movie, it's a guy, it's a girl, and possibly even a South Park ripoff. As for the company, it's a mining company based in Australia. As for the guy, I'll get to that in a minute. As for the girl, I lied. And as for the South Park ripoff, you could probably guess that one. But the South 32 movie is where this mystery starts, at least for me. The South 32 movie is a weird, low-budget detective film. And that's kind of it. But there's a website attached to this movie called south32.com, which is really weird and has pretty much no relation to the movie. And you wouldn't ever think it's connected to the South 32 movie, let alone the South 32 mining company. But that's because it's not related to the mining company. So there's this guy called Luigi Bian who owns the website. And if you look up the CEO of South 32 Mining Company, you'll see that it's not Luigi Bian. That's not right. What's going on here? Luigi Bian is quite an odd fellow. At least I assume so because I could barely find shit about him online. This guy owns over 7,000 domains, or possibly over 30,000 at this point, but I couldn't find any sources for that number. Most of them either link to south32.com or just have a video talking about how
South 32 Mining are being sued right now for $800 billion.
Of course, with animal genitalia full on display. Luigi Bian, real named Saeed Yomtobian, is honestly pretty mentally unwell, and it's super clear to see. These websites change constantly to always have some new kind of slander or ramblings on them. At one point, the main website called the CEO of the mining company a sexaholic and a pornaholic. At another point in time, the website was all about hating China and plainly said things like South 32 employees say fuck China. And another instance literally put out a hit for a man named Mr. Elder. Mr. Elder refers to a YouTuber by the name Elder's Vault. And the reason that Saeed wants him dead is because he was one of the first people to bring attention to South32.com. Let's be honest though, name one person who would accept 100,000 to kill someone. You're gonna have to bump those numbers up a bit, because that's not even life-changing amounts of money. Speaking of money though, where the hell does this man get enough money to host all 7,000 plus domains at once? The South 32 movie is a free movie, so it's definitely not that. The most widely accepted theory is that Saeed is a domain squatter, meaning that he buys domains that successful companies might have an interest in, like theironman.com or wplace.com, or I guess most notably south32.com, and then attempts to sell them to companies for crazy prices, like how he gave the South 32 mining company an offer of 10 million for the domain, which is fucking outrageous. What Saeed is doing is illegal, and knowing that starts to let you put pieces together as to what's going on here. So knowing what we know now, it makes sense why Saeed is going under the name Luigi Bian instead of his real name. It makes sense why he owns 7,000 different domains, and it makes sense why the movie exists now. The first two are kinda obvious, but the third one is a bit weird, but legally it makes sense. Saeed is using the South 32 movie as a means to keep the South 32 domain without it being considered domain squatting, since he could now claim that the website is being used to promote the movie. As for the excessive use of animal penises, I can't tell you why, you'd have to ask a psychiatrist. So technically what Saeed is doing here is just promoting his movie with all 7,000 domains he has. But we all really know what's going on here. He's just an insanely mentally unwell person trying to make money by domain squatting. And I guess it had to have worked at least a couple of times if he's able to keep this many domains at once. A big part of the rabbit hole is just how many links you come across that he owns, like blackslaves.com, fuckmylife.com, and reltor.com. There's so many more that I could list, but I'm sure you could find a bunch of them on your own if you just try hard enough. So outside of this entry sounding like some sort of disease that develops down there, Publius Enigma is pretty simple to explain, as it's another one of those where someone came out and explained everything. So you all know about Pink Floyd, everyone's favorite English rock band with their extremely popular albums The Wall and The Wizard of Oz. This whole mystery revolves around Pink Floyd, so how about we set the mood and play some as the background music? Actually, I'll probably get in legal trouble if I do that, so we'll just have to listen to something else. Sorry. So this rabbit hole starts with the Pink Floyd album The Division Bell, and this guy who only calls himself Publius. At the time, Pink Floyd was doing a world tour for the album The Division Bell, and in July of 1994, the one who calls himself Publius posts a few messages onto a Usenet group for Pink Floyd fans. Their message contains a challenge and a riddle, which is this. As some of you have suspected, The Division Bell is not like its predecessors. Although all great music is subject to multiple interpretations, in this case, there is a central purpose and a design solution. For the ingenious person, or group of persons, who recognizes this, and where this information points to, a unique prize has been secreted. How and where? The Division Bell. Listen again. Look again. As your thoughts will steer you, leading the blind while I stared out the steel in your eyes. Lyrics, artwork, and music will take you there. Okay, so cryptic-ass message aside, why does this guy have to use a name that sounds like some sort of fungus? Well, actually, there is a reason for that, although it's not too important. If you have the mini-disc for Pink Floyd's A Momentary Lapse of Reason, and look at the booklet that comes with the album, on the 6th page near a man standing on a cliff, you can see the word Enigma. And a few pages later, next to a man holding a scythe, you could see the word Publius. This really doesn't get us anywhere though, so moving on. The date is now July 16th, 1994, and Publius has posted another message, saying that he would validate his legitimacy, and that something would appear in flashing white lights. And 2 days later in East Rutherford, small lights on the front of the stage for Pink Floyd's concert spelled Enigma Publius. There was another concert in November that pretty much did the same exact thing, except all it said this time was Enigma. Eventually people just kinda stopped caring about the whole phenomenon, as there really wasn't much to go off of, and there wasn't even any clue as to what the prize would be. For all we know, they could have just given us a patch of trees in the woods or something equally as useless. You could find a bunch of theories as to what this is just by googling Publius Enigma solved and laughing at how many different answers you could find. Like on the first page of Google alone, I found people saying that the answer is communication and like sharing meaning you personally find within the songs. There's also posts that talk about the album cover being the solution. And there's even a whole website dedicated to what I think is just someone's bout with psychosis, as they say the Division Bell speaks out about how the author of the blog was abused and stalked, which I really doubt is the real meaning behind the album, as I don't see any connection between the author and any member of Pink Floyd, or any other band members for that matter. Good thing we don't have to make our own theories though, as multiple members of Pink Floyd have come out and just told us what the Publius Enigma was supposed to be. In 2002, Pink Floyd's guitarist David Gilmour said that Publius Enigma was something thought up by their record company. And in 2005, Nick Mason, the drummer for the band, also stated during a book signing event that it was thought of by their record label, EMI. Nick Mason also went a bit more in depth with it, saying that it was thought of by a guy who really loved puzzles and wanted something that could be followed online. Nick also shared what the prize would have been too, saying that it would have been something like a crop of trees in the forest, or something to that effect. Nowadays, most people just seem to accept that it was a marketing stunt to promote the Division Bell. And honestly, it was way ahead of its time too. If this was something that happened at any point past the 2010s, I probably wouldn't have put it in this video, because at that point, it's just an ARG. I'm gonna take a nap. This has been a lot of research so far. That was a pretty good nap. No dreams though. How unfortunate. I heard about a survey that wants weird dreams too, and I wanted to participate. So you see this poster right here. The one I just found on the street right now. This is the Happy Valley Dream Survey. At a first glance, it seems like a really weird organization putting up these flyers around Utah Valley in Utah. The poster reads, "Have you been having strange dreams? The Happy Valley Dream Survey is investigating a recent spike in bizarre, unexplainable dreams. If you have been experiencing any unusual dream activity, you could help by reporting a summary. Please contact either 725-333-9067 or Happy Valley Dream Survey at mail.com and leave a description of your dream." I was gonna contact the number just for this video, but I think I would rather not risk my phone number getting logged somewhere that I never plan on visiting. But I don't think I really need to risk getting doxxed to know what happens when you call the phone number, because we have plenty of secondhand experiences to look at. They're all pretty much the exact same. You call a number, an automated voice tells you to leave a description of your dream after the tone, just like leaving a voicemail. Once you hang up, you receive an automated text that thanks you for sharing their dream with the organization, or whoever runs this thing. How nice of them. Some people report getting calls back that they end up missing because whoever is on the other end is really nervous and always hangs up right before you press accept. Some people get texts back from the same number if they try to dig deeper and send messages to the number, which actually got some people somewhere, but that's for later. So the Happy Valley Dream Survey isn't actually the first survey like this. It's just the more recent and more well-known instance, as there was a survey done 5 years prior in 2015 all across the Willamette Valley, which funnily enough contains a different place called Happy Valley. The Willamette Valley Dream Survey was much more primitive than the Happy Valley Dream Survey, as there were no text messages you received and not even an email to contact. You just left the description of your dream in this person's inbox and that was it. They now legally own the rights to your dream. It's not entirely confirmed that it's the same person behind these two surveys, but I think it's possible that it is. Posters read exactly the same, except it switches Willamette Valley for Happy Valley. But it also lists a different phone number, so it's possible that these are just two different entities. So I've kind of just been throwing shit around right now, and it's not really getting me anywhere. Maybe I will actually have to let my phone number get traced for this video. But first, I want to know what bullshit the internet has come up with to try and solve this. Let's see. Writer with writer's block. That's stupid. Art project. I mean, maybe, but that's so lame though. CIA lacing people? Now that's a real conspiracy theory if I've ever seen one. But I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, all of these theories suck. They're all dumb. The only one I would believe for a second is it having to do with the School of Metaphysics and their annual Dream Hotline event. That is, if that wasn't already debunked. I'm not having my personal phone interact with the sketchy ass number, and I'm not going out to buy a temporary phone. So I'm just gonna watch YouTube videos of people texting the number instead.
Later.
Okay, so after watching YouTube videos on this entry, I could confidently say I know absolutely everything about this one. And my elite knowledge says it's related to a cult. Okay, so YouTuber Nick Crowley did his own little dive into the survey and even bought a burner phone just to contact the number because he has the money to do that, and I don't. So there was one message he received from texting the number that just said whatever that is. He went through some translation gymnastics and eventually settled on a translation of September 5 JIT. September 5 has a significant meaning here, that being the September 5th, 2020 cult. This cult thought that a cataclysmic event would happen on September 5th, 2020 that would destroy the world. Not too different than how we were all thinking at the end of 2012, or at the turn of the millennium. The difference between Y2K and September 5th, 2020 is that Y2K actually had fears that were based on something that could realistically happen. The September 5th cult just picked a date and said fuck it, that's when the world is ending. But where this cult ties back to the dream surveys though, outside of the phone number sending it as a message, how the cult seemed to reference dreams quite often. That's cool and all, but if you look at the date right now, the cult was clearly just a bunch of bullshit since we're still alive. So, if you ask me what this whole rabbit hole is supposed to be, I think it's just an art project, some elaborate prank, or just a way to draw attention to that joke of a cult. Although that last one would assume the Happy Valley Dream Survey was run by someone different than the one who hosted the Willamette Dream Survey, because there's literally nothing in that first survey that links to the cult, outside of both relating to dreams. So I think the most likely explanation is it's either an art project or just a prank, because some of the messages people got through texting the number were just quotes from movies or shows. Someone actually got a line from Rick and Morty just by texting the number.
Dad?
What, so everyone's supposed to sleep every single night now? You realize that nighttime makes up half of all time?
So you're gonna have to draw your own conclusions, because it's kind of a dead end unless it's related to computersclub.org, which some people were reportedly sent after texting the Dream Survey's number. If that's the case, then it has to be an art project at this point. I mean, just look at this website. I think it's cooler than it being related to a joke doomsday cult though. Now this is a real doomsday cult right here. I mean, this is the one true religion that everyone, and that includes you and me, should subscribe to. Heaven's Gate is a harmless religion that stems from Christianity with a mix of ufology and beliefs from the New Age movement. Except the New Age part isn't really important because Heaven's Gate is mostly its own beliefs on what you should do with your life. But keep in mind the ufology part. I think to get a look into this friendly and accepting religion, it's probably best to take a long look at the introductory tapes provided for no cost. Except this isn't the introductory tape, it's the end of Evangelion, and I have no way to play it. So let's just go to YouTube instead and look for an archive of it. I'll get back to you when I'm indoctrinated. Guys, I think I get it now. We aren't dealing with cult-like behavior or anything. We're dealing with the Antichrist. So this guy right here, let's just call him Doe, as that seems to be his name of choice. He says a lot of things in these two tapes. First and foremost, Doe tells a prophecy of Earth being recycled in the near future, and that everyone must leave with quote-unquote us, which you could assume is just the Heaven's Gate group as a whole. Now, right out of the gate, this is already a good chunk to take in. I mean, sure, Earth being destroyed isn't exactly the most original idea.
And that's pretty major statement. Pretty bold.
But it's still a lot to claim, so this guy better have something to back it up. Which, as a matter of fact, he does. Well, kind of. Doe's only real evidence that Earth will be destroyed soon is that 1, he thinks we're at the end of Earth's cycle, and 2, that's it. I'm completely hooked. Please tell me how we could leave, O Savior. This first tape mentions a lot of things in the Bible, or at least supposedly in the Bible. I haven't read the thing, so I can't say for sure. And I don't want to take Mr. Doe's word as gospel. He says that Jesus Christ was really just a name given to a body that came from the kingdom of heaven down to earth, and claims that the same mind that was in that vessel is the same mind that's in his body. He also claims that living a long life is like really bad for believers, quoting that Jesus, or rather Doe's old vessel, said, "If you wish to know of my Father, then shed everything you have and come follow me." In other words, he says that killing yourself is the most Christian thing you could do. right above playing Doom 2 and watching Bill Jensen live streams. Not only does this guy claim he has the same mind that Jesus was, he also likes to say that his father is God himself, because of course he is. There's also plenty of mention of shedding human desires and evolving past human flesh, just like any good Christian cult would say, with Doe directly saying that we are not allowed to make scrambled eggs for our family. He also says that we just shouldn't have a family anyways, but I think there's more important matters here. Also, I love this part of the tape because you could audibly hear people in the background laughing after he disavows all scrambling of eggs.
Will not go into houses on some planet like Earth and reproduce and have families and sit and watch television and make scrambled eggs.
Doe mentions that there's 3 different types of people that could be saved from the end of this cycle, which sounds like not very many people, but the last one literally means anyone could be saved, so I don't get the point of this. The first kind of person able to be salvaged is those who have, quote, overcome enough. Knowing what you have to overcome is a completely different question that I don't have the answer to. The second type of person who could be saved are those who are faithful enough. This one is straightforward, and I doubt I have to explain it. But being faithful enough isn't enough to go to heaven, as Doe says you'll just be sent back to Earth once the next cycle starts. So what the hell's the point of this? The last type of person that could be saved, and the one that invalidates both of the other conditions just mentioned, is those who hear our voice right at the end. There's a couple ways you could take this, but the most obvious one is just like that Family Guy cutaway.
Now the Catholics believe that as long as you accept Jesus before you die, anyone can get into heaven. Really? Anyone?
I accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior. Yes!
Meaning that you don't have to overcome enough or even really be faithful, but rather just accept Heaven's Gate as the one true religion. Once you do leave this planet and leave for the kingdom of heaven, you'll get assigned a body. One that doesn't need food or water or a mouth, or really anything that humans have. And what they look like is
What you might consider a very attractive extraterrestrial.
you know what? That's a perfect segue to the last thing I want to talk about in this tape. Because the second one is really just Doe restating a bunch of stuff he already says in the first tape. There's a bunch of hilarious shit Doe says in this tape that actually makes me so confused on how people believe this guy. I already showed you the scrambled eggs bit and what Doe describes your heavenly bodies as, but he also talks about Star Trek for some reason.
It doesn't matter. None of it matters if you came up with where the extent of your religious background was Star Trek.
He also says not to talk to your friends about this, which, outside of sounding really bad in context, sounds really bad in context, and is a classic manipulation tactic. The group even had a slogan that was just do it, like Nike's slogan, except instead of do, they said doe, so just doe it. Now, that was just the introductory tape. What literally everyone knows this group for is what they all did on March 22nd, 1997. But before that, let's get a little backstory. So, in mid-1996, 2 major things happened. The Hale-Bopp comet was visible to the naked eye, and the Heaven's Gate group bought alien abduction insurance, which covered abduction, death by aliens, and even impregnation by aliens. Fast forward to March 13th, and the news reports mass sightings of what many thought were UFOs, but the news just called them flashing lights. A week later is when the Antichrist taped a video of him talking about how the comet was the signal that their group was looking for to get into heaven, and that mass suicide would be the course of action. This wasn't just because of the comet itself. There were plenty of rumors that there was a UFO following the comet, and just a couple days later, on March 22nd, the Heaven's Gate group began their mass suicide by drinking some bullshit and washing it down with vodka, then suffocating themselves. That's pretty much the end of the cult though. But that doesn't mean I'm done yet. There's still a little bit more to go through. Mr. Doe, or Marshall Applewhite, is kind of a nutcase, although that should be obvious considering he drove people to kill themselves off of a what if, pretty much. Like in 1974, he was arrested for failing to return a rental car, which he then tried to claim that he was divinely authorized to keep the car as his own. He also had a, well, I was gonna say wife, but it's not super clear what he thought of her. They never had any sexual relations because they were against the idea of human urges and having a family. And after his partner died, he started referring to her as the father and with male pronouns, so I have no idea what to make of their relationship. Around 1995, his hatred for human sexual desires was so strong that he actually hired people to surgically castrate him, because higher beings had no reproductive organs, and having a gender was Luciferian, which, I mean, sure, if you want to see it that way, then go off, my NB monarch. But not only did he have himself castrated, he also had other members go through with the surgery as well. All for the kingdom, I guess. Oh, he was also fucking his students when he worked at the University of St. Thomas, so Jesus might be going to hell. That's really all I care to talk about with him, so I'll just get on with it and finish up this entry, because this is the longest one so far, I think. There's a Heaven's Gate website that's still up to this day, and has some pretty interesting stuff, like their book detailing how to enter Heaven's Gate, and a message explaining how what they're doing isn't actually mass suicide, which thank God it isn't. I thought they were doing something problematic. But the most interesting thing about this website has to do with when you contact them. As of, well, sometime recently, I can't find any information on whether these people are still alive. There are members of the cult that are still alive that run the website, and if you ask nicely, they'll send you old tapes of the introductory videos, which is how I got them specifically for this video. You could also still order their book too, I think, but I am not wasting $45 on that. Why should I have to pay more? I've already sold my soul to the one and only true religion. I'm glad that whoever keeps the site up hasn't changed anything about the website in all these years. At this rate, Costco's gonna have to raise the price of their hot dogs before that flashing red alert is taken off the website. Just you wait though, next time Comet Hail Bob comes around, I will be there no matter what.
What lies behind this door? Behind this door?
If you're a true 2000s head like me, you've seen this thing before. This thing is honestly scarier than Jeff the Killer because it's not a creepypasta. So to know Shaye St. John, you have to know Eric Fournier. Well, not really, but it's a little important. Not a lot is known about him, but it's stated that he never seemed to like the spotlight all that much. What is known is that he found a passion for filmmaking pretty early, with IMDb listing his first ever produced film dating back to 1980. But it doesn't have Shaye in it, so who cares? I don't know exactly when Eric came up with the idea for the Shaye St. John character, but it had to be somewhere around 1998, because that was when the first 20 short films about her started circulating. And if you didn't know that Shaye St. John was just the character, now you know. Eric designed Shaye to have a very tragic backstory, one of a supermodel who got disfigured in a car crash, who remodeled her own body using mannequin parts. She also has a doll friend named Kiki that has telekinetic powers for some reason, which is a central topic in some of her videos that she calls triggers for some reason. These triggers are really just a bunch of nonsense, and most of the time I feel like I'm watching a really odd YouTube poop.
Kiki, I bet we know that your powers are destructive and evil!
Luigi?
Shaye St. John would make an underground debut with a series of 20 shorts that were reportedly shown in nightclubs in Los Angeles, where Eric lived. It wouldn't be until 2003 when Shaye was first seen online, with Eric posting on LiveJournal, pretending that Shaye was the one posting. A year later would see the release of the Shaye and Kiki Trigger compilation DVD that I refuse to spend $400 for, and much less $1,500 for. I will be buying St. John in Exile for $6, however. Shaye even got her own YouTube channel, which is where I'm sure many people became very familiar with her. Once again, the YouTube channel was seen as Shaye's, not Eric's, so those who weren't familiar with Shaye St. John, which was every single person at the time, was either confused, terrified, or laughing their ass off. These videos aren't too different than the ones on the compilation DVD, except they don't really try to tell any small story and are just pure nonsense. Like Hand Thing, for example. Please give me a single idea, a droplet of speculation on what this video could possibly be trying to tell.
Shaye? Are you still doing that hand thing? I heard you're doing the hand thing today. God, what is that? Shaye, what is it?
Luigi?
The channel was deleted in 2017, which sucks because Handling had like 4 million views last I could remember. Thankfully they're archivals though, so we could still see these works of modern art without having to pay $1,000. There's also a website made around 2004 for Shaye, which is its own little rabbit hole to get into. Like Yvette's, there's just so many links to click all over the site, and many of them are just really bizarre to look at. Like Yvette's, once again, I don't really have enough free time to look at everything on this website. So the main interests are the triggers section and the journal, where Shaye puts anything she wants, and hasn't been updated since 2024. And wasn't even Shaye updating the journal, it was Kiki. Sadly though, there's a reason that the website hasn't been updated by Shaye, and that's because Eric Fournier died in 2010 from issues with alcohol. Meaning that even though Eric and Shaye are two different people, Shaye won't be able to make anything ever again. And no, that 2017 interview is fake. You made a great art project, Eric Fournier. Thanks for scaring me as a child. And even though I didn't have much to say about it, I still enjoyed it nonetheless. I don't know how to end this segment, so... Okay, so I need to come clean with you guys. That poster I found in the Happy Valley Dream Survey segment wasn't actually for the Dream Survey. It was for this man. Now, I haven't dreamed of this guy before, but he kind of does look like the kind of guy you would only see in a dream. So this entry revolves around this guy right here. He doesn't even have a name other than this man, and even has a website dedicated to himself. This website is pretty much where the whole rabbit hole stems from, and even has its own explanation of what it's about. So let's give it a short read. In January 2006, in New York, the patient of a well-known psychiatrist draws the face of a man that has been repeatedly appearing in her dreams. In more than one occasion, that man has given her advice on her private life. The woman swears she has never met the man in her life. The psychiatrist decides to send the portrait to some of his colleagues that have patients with recurrent dreams. Within a few months, 4 patients recognize this man as a frequent presence in their own dreams. All the patients refer to him as this man. From January 2006 until today, at least 2,000 people have claimed they have seen this man in their dreams, in many cities all over the world. At the moment, there is no ascertained relation or common trait among the people that have dreamed of seeing this man. Moreover, no living man has ever been recognized as resembling the man of the portrait by people who have seen this man in their dreams. The aim of this website is to help those who have seen this man in their dreams and to foster communication among them, and to understand who this man is and why he appears in an apparently patternless array of situations in the dreams of such diverse human subjects. Now, if you asked me what I thought about this back in 2009, I wouldn't have told you anything because I wasn't allowed to talk to strangers. But you can assume I would have said it was a load of baloney, because that's what I thought as of 30 minutes before researching this. This website also has a page dedicated to theories, where they actually just throw anything at the wall hoping it sticks. They talk about how this man is like some kind of special instance where he has super specific psychological skills that lets him go into other people's dreams, like that one SpongeBob episode. Or that this specific image is part of the collective consciousness. Or that this man is a manifestation of God. That last one is complete bullshit because we just learned about the reincarnation of Jesus and God like 10 minutes ago. And I don't know about you, but this man doesn't really look like a very attractive extraterrestrial to me. There's also a theory listed that this phenomenon only exists because someone asked, "Have you ever dreamed this man?" Which out of everything here, is the most believable out of the bunch. Now, this website is cool and all, but it wouldn't really explode in popularity until 2009, which was less than a year after the website was created. Quickly, people started sending tons of emails to the tiny little address at the bottom of the page. And people sent theories as to who the man could be, and unfortunately, this man is not Stephen Hawking. Now, eventually, the anonymous CIA hackers on 4chan got a hold of thisman.org, and eventually discovered something big by doing a simple who is lookup of the website. Sadly, it wasn't who this man was, but rather who owned the site. The hosting company also owned a website called guerrillamarketing.it, which is a quote fake advertising agency founded by Andrea Natella, which this means that thisman.org is just a part of a guerrilla marketing scheme. But it's easier just to call it a hoax, because literally what could this even be marketing to people? Quickly after the website was exposed as a hoax, and by quickly I mean sometime the year after, Natella confirmed that everything was a hoax made up by him. But despite that, in 2015, Vice Media for some reason contacted Natella for an interview. They ended up publishing an article on thisman.org, and only a few hours after its publishing, they had to edit the article to apologize because, surprise surprise, the whole thing is a sham. I guess it really is that hard to do a simple Google search. You would know because you're watching this video. Now, I'm honestly not really sure why this entry is on here, because it's not really a rabbit hole. Once again, it's more just general internet mystery stuff. If you ask me now, 30 minutes after researching this, I would tell you that this is a bologna sandwich. Alright, so let's do something a little different this time. Instead of jumping down into a rabbit hole head first, let's just watch someone else dig their own. This story is about a user named Alex Shepard, and he has managed to claim the ever so elusive role of administrator for the Silent Hill Wiki. Now, what is the Silent Hill Wiki? Well, I was hoping you could tell me. One day, Alex Shepard ends up putting a few pieces together about a character named Walter Sullivan, and comes up with a theory that belongs in the Hall of Fame. The theory states that Mr. Sullivan was a victim of genital mutilation, which sounds pretty bad until you read that he just means the character was circumcised. Alex Shepard also claims that all doctors are connected to the Illuminati and are satanic for doing this to children, all within the first 2 paragraphs of the section added to Walter's wiki page. Alex then claims that circumcision can cause many negative effects to the human psyche, including brain damage, depression, PTSD, and brain damage. The rest of the segment just goes on about how circumcision harms men and how Americans are brainwashed into believing circumcision is necessary for babies. Which, I mean, I guess he's kind of right. It's not necessary to live without your foreskin, but are we really going to side with the guy who has 0 sources to back up his claims? There's also a mini section where Alex Shepard goes over what he believes could be possible foreskin symbolism, and it's just screenshots of scary things in the Nightmare Hospital, along with another theory that the greedy worm monster is supposed to symbolize a cut pee-pee. Alex starts off by saying that the greedy worm has, quote, phallic symbolism. Like, dude, it's a fucking worm. No shit it's gonna look like a cylinder. This theory that is honestly just more anti-circumcision preaching than theory took up more space than actual segments about what William Sullivan actually does in the games. Eventually, and by that I mean like 2 days after the edits were published, they were reverted, and then added back. Obviously this led to a small edit war, where one side was trying to keep the page fresh and objective, while the other one was trying to push their woke agenda. You could probably guess who's who. So now we have to travel to the forums, where obviously people are talking about foreskin, as Silent Hill fans love to do. The arguing is about what you would expect. One side keeps going, this has nothing to do with Silent Hill, and then Alex Shepard goes, you're a fucking horrible human being. Also asking a mother who frequented the website to prove that her son still had his foreskin, which is pretty disgusting. And also a nice little bit of foreshadowing. Something that Alex Shepard also notes is that he also edits other wikis, including but not limited to Xenosaga, Zero Escape, and the Persona series, in which you could find edits similar to what was going on in the Silent Hill wiki, although they were much sparser and not talked about nearly as much as his circumcision theory. Eventually, a user by the name Voidburger would post a thread to Twitter showing what was happening on the Silent Hill wiki, and the post went viral, leading to news articles being made to cover this stupid-ass wiki theory for some reason. It also led to Alex Shepard making a post addressing his newfound infamy, and also taking the time to ask some very thought-provoking questions, like if we have complete faith in the government, and how do we know that we aren't being controlled by the Illuminati? Which I guess he can't really be faulted for these questions, because there isn't any way we could be sure. But once again, are we going to side with the guy who vows to never let another foreskin be mutilated again? There's also another post where Alex unknowingly calls both himself and the whole Silent Hill dev team schizophrenic. I don't know where else to put this, so it's going in here. As you could expect, Alex Shepard was eventually banned from the wiki and stripped of all admin privileges, as any sane higher-up would reasonably do. Later down the line though, Alex Shepard would go on to make edits on another wiki. I think it was the Xenosaga or Xenogears wiki, I don't remember which, but it was one of the Xeno ones that he had permissions in. In these edits, he would end up defending non-offending pedophiles and some other messed up human beings. That about sums up this self-dug hole, and I hope he never comes out of it, because just like everyone's favorite American financer, J. Edward Epstein said, I hate pedophiles.
The following is a paid program. The opinions and views expressed do not reflect those of Cricket Productions or its employees.
Okay, so there's this daycare in Salt Lake City, and it provides its services for cheap. It's called Funtime Kids Care, and it's just a normal daycare, I swear. Don't listen to what they say online. They're all liars. It is just an ordinary daycare. Don't worry about how you never see kids walk in or out. Okay, so on Reddit, maybe 11 something years ago, this guy who goes by the name Disco Godfather 6922 made a post on the Salt Lake City subreddit with a photo of the mysterious green building. The post questioned the authenticity of the place, as they have never seen a kid there in the 5 years they've lived next to it. But just like I said, the place is legit and you don't have to ask why. People on the SLC subreddit didn't seem to believe that, however, and the post got a crap ton of attention. And what happens when people don't get a quick and easy answer to a mystery? Well, first it gets added to the Iceberg, and then they start spreading rumors, which is always super fun. People just started saying anything they wanted while completely overlooking the world's most obvious answer. People started calling the place a pedophile ring, a money laundering scheme, and even a CIA black site. Which, for those who don't know, is a place used by the CIA to torture people who are allegedly connected to September 11, 2001. Which makes this theory even funnier because they would do that outside of American territory. Even with all these rumors and fake theories floating around, people still didn't have an answer. Even though the answer was that it was just a daycare. It eventually devolved into people talking about doxing the owners of the facility and posting their personal information online. This is why literally everything on the original thread is deleted. You can't even find stuff through the Wayback Machine, which means I have to get all of my information from secondhand sources, which is pretty annoying. After the original post got deleted, the mystery kinda died down. Just kidding, they instead moved over to r/conspiracy and things got even more insane. People eventually started calling and harassing the shit out of the daycare, not even really getting information out of them because what's the point in doing that? There's also this guy named u/deathship, who I guess is kind of a part of this mystery. But honestly, if you ask me, I think he's just trolling everyone. Deathship posted warnings under comments telling people to not dig any further into the daycare, hinting that it might be bigger than just a daycare. The original poster of the Salt Lake City subreddit post was contacted by a few people, including Deathship, with plenty of threats, telling them to take down his post and comments, and saying that continuing to search will cost them their life, and that they should know this so they dive without any regrets. 59824. Yeah, I'm not reading all that. Deathship, though, has a pretty interesting background, and by interesting, I mean complete bullshit. He claimed that he spoke 8 languages, and even said he works at Area 51, which, yeah dude, people are just gonna believe that you could even talk about working at Area 51 with no repercussions. Here's the thing with this whole mystery though, you're not gonna believe me, but Funtime Kids Care is just a regular daycare. I know, it's shocking. If you dig into it, there's some odd stuff, like how the owner apparently doesn't have actual training to run a daycare, but other than minor mishaps, and at least in my opinion a bunch of false flags, I think Funtime Kids Care is just a bog standard daycare, albeit a bit ghetto and with a weirdly designed building. Maybe I'm wrong, but who really knows what's going on in there? Probably nothing because it's just a daycare.
The proceeding was a paid commercial program.
Cricket Productions
Assumes no responsibility for its content.
Okay, so imagine a scenario for me real quick. It's June 2011, and you and your best buddy are up in your attic talking about whatever the hell. And he calls your attic a mess because, quite frankly, it is. Flash forward a bit to November 2011, and you're reading through your emails when you come across something interesting. And I'm not talking about the mail that promises hot ladies in your area. You see an email from your friend, once again telling you to clean up that damn attic. You know, just joking around with you and whatnot. Normal, right? Well, except for the fact that Jack Froese has been dead for 5 months at this point. He died of a heart arrhythmia only a few days after you and him were up in the attic. So how the hell is he sending you, or rather Tim Hart, emails long after his death? The email was honestly quite creepy. The subject line just reads, "I'm watching," and the body says that he's at your house. Weird, yes. Also extremely eerie. But there's some easy explanations as to how this even happened. It's actually quite easy to have an email sent after you die, and even more so in the modern era, since you could schedule an email to send after your death if you know when your time will be up. What's more likely though is that Jack Froese used one of the many services that just do what I described, but manually, and for money. Sure, it's a little strange to think that Jack Froese had one of those for the future, since he died suddenly from an arrhythmia that doctors didn't even know existed, but it's not like it's unreasonable. That would be the case if it weren't for another email sent just a few days later. Jimmy McGraw, the cousin of Jack Froese, would report that he also received an email from Jack Froese, and it's much more difficult to explain. The subject line just read, "Hey Jim," and the body was as follows: "How you doing? I knew you were gonna break your ankle. Tried to warn you. Gotta be careful. Tell Rock for me. Great song, huh? You're welcome." Couldn't get through to him. His email didn't work. Now, I don't know who Rock is.
I don't know who the hell is. My name is
Jimmy McGraw.
But no one cares about that part anyways. The most interesting and weird part about the second email is the mention of Jimmy McGraw breaking his ankle. Keep in mind the current timeline because we're adding another event to it. June 2011, Jack and Tim are in the attic. Later June 2011, Jack dies. November 2011, the emails show up. 2 weeks before the emails were received, Jimmy broke his ankle, almost 5 months after Jack Froese had died. Now how the hell did Jack Froese know that Jimmy would end up breaking his ankle? Could he see the future? Is he communicating from the afterlife? Did someone close to him take over his account? Well, there's no way to know for sure, although one of those propositions are a lot more likely than the others. This is just one of those things that are kinda just destined to forever be a mystery, where the most likely answer is that it was just a coincidence somehow and Jack Froese got really, really lucky. Unless someone comes out and shows proof that they hacked into his email. Or maybe Jack Froese shows up and admits he faked his death or something. This one will probably never conclusively be solved. Cthulhu.net is a website that says nothing but dead but dreaming. That's it. Okay, there's more, but not on Cthulhu.net. To understand what this entry is about, we actually need to look into Mortis.com, which is confusing because why the hell does this Iceberg have Cthulhu.net listed instead of Mortis.com? Whatever, it doesn't matter, because we both now understand that this entry is about Mortis.com. Mortis.com is one of the harder mysteries to get into, because it's one of the few entries that have been lost to time. And by that, I mean the website isn't up anymore, and you can't even view it on the Wayback Machine. But thankfully, the internet is a wonderful place where you have access to infinite secondhand experiences. Through these secondary accounts, we could piece together that Mortis.com was a website that said nothing but Mortis on it. That was, until you clicked on the word and it brought up a login page, with a distinct lack of a sign-up option. No matter what you put in, nothing would work. So initial noticers on 4chan's paranormal board went over to the technology board, asking for assistance in gaining access to the site. Okay, so first of all, why the hell is this even interesting? It's just a login page with an odd URL. Well, the original reason that this was ever brought up is because someone noticed the sheer amount of data that was on this website. It was storing terabytes of storage, which, while is kind of common nowadays for bigger websites, this was a single person's website back in the late 90s to early 2000s. So that's what Mortis.com is. A website with a very hard to crack login page that's storing terabytes of content. Obviously, this is going to stir up a ton of rumors, because just like every other entry before this one, it's definitely going to be more cheese pizza this time. There's a guy connected to this website though, that goes by the name Thomas Ling. And I'll be honest, I cannot find a single hint as to how people found this out, as so much information about this website has been scrubbed from the internet. My best guess is that someone just did a whois search and found a name that linked to the website, which I can't confirm because doing that myself returns literally nothing. At least we could confirm that Thomas Ling is connected through a reverse whois search, which brings up not only Mortis.com, but also Cthulhu.net, and a bunch of other websites that all use the exact same registrar. DentalFillins.com is probably the most normal one here, as it's just a homepage for a company that staffs dentists and others alike. The only odd thing here is that they decided to lie about how long they've been open for. The website says they've been in business since 1976, even though public records show that the business only existed since '98. And as I'm writing this script, it'll be the 14th anniversary of Dental Fillins going out of business. Looking around the site isn't anything crazy, so let's just move on. Eternal Night is pretty similar to the likes of Cthulhu and Mortis, as it was just a picture of a black knight piece for a good chunk of its life, before changing into a carbon copy of Cthulhu.net in 2011, and then back to the Black Knight. xrceo.com is a really small index of files, and it's actually still up to this day. It has an HTML file that shows a bunch of quilts, and oh hey, would you look at that, a folder with all of the files for the HTML, a text document with something I'm not nearly schizophrenic enough to understand, and a folder with images of items that Thomas Ling is supposedly looking to sell. Those items include a Honda radio plus speakers, Coleman polisher, and a cable box. If nothing else, this website serves as another way to link all of these to the same person, as the HTML file mentions a Jeff and a Josh, which is a great segue into Jeffrey Ling and JoshuaLing.com. Both of these websites were probably just saved for Thomas Ling's children when they grew up. They both have the exact same placeholder image that was used on EternalNight.com, a black knight. This was up until 2017, where they changed into an index that only had that weird text file from xrceo on it, which happens to be the fate of most of Thomas Ling's websites. KarenLing.com is another website that was being saved, but this time it was either for his wife or a sibling or something, I don't know. What's different though is in its earliest form, KarenLing.com didn't have the chess piece, but instead just said future home of KarenLing.com before turning into another Black Knight. Lingsboro is another Black Knight, although this could have been something else and just wasn't documented at all. ThomasLingDDS.com is Thomas Ling's personal website, and all it really does is give his background in dentistry for anyone looking to hire. So we know that Thomas Ling has a family and is a dentist because we stalked him to the ends of the earth. But what does this mean for Mortis.com? Well, you'll have to take this with a grain of salt because, secondhand accounts and all that. But unfortunately, it's nothing illegal and not super duper crazy. Well, I mean, it is something illegal, but not what you're expecting it to be when I say that. So there have been some files found on Mortis.com, all of which have crazy file sizes, like one titled Drive Crazy 3D that sat at 25 gigabytes. Another interesting thing found was a built-in media player, almost like how you could embed YouTube players into a website. You could probably put two and two together just from that alone. Mortis.com, despite the odd name, was probably just some guy making his own personal Netflix page before Netflix was a thing. Sure, it doesn't satisfy one's morbid curiosity, but it's much more reasonable than it being a child trafficking ring like I've seen so many people say it was. Too bad I'll never get to see the homepage ever. So you all know what jailbait is, right? Well, there's this guy who was a complete expert on it back when it was still allowed on Reddit. A man who claimed to be 79 years of age, and claimed to have served in the military, and a man who is really bad at lying about his age. U/Religion of Peace is the man that this entry revolves around, and it unfortunately has to start on r/jailbait. Religion of Peace was a moderator on r/jailbait, but outside of that, no one really cared about him too much. He was just kind of known as that really old guy who left a link in all of his comments. This link led to a website that plastered the name That Old Guy's Image Host right at the top. You could probably assume what was on there, given he was advertising it on r/jailbait, but it was just a bunch of porn and probably more jailbait too. If you didn't already click off the website from the bombardment of porn, you might notice something odd. The URL for this website isn't anything like what's shown on the top of the page. The URL reads out as lakecityquietpills.com, which isn't fitting at all for a website with this much porn on it. But just like every good mystery, no one really cared that much to look into it, and everything continued as normal, with U/Religion of Peace doing his moderator duties and complaining about spammers and whatever you complained about in 2009. That was until he died on July 17th, 2009. On that same day, a new character would enter the fray, and he goes by the name 2-6. Or just 26. 26 would make a post telling everyone about the passing of Religion of Peace, or as 26 refers to him, Milo. It's quite obvious just from reading the post that 26 and Milo had at least some sort of relationship with each other. Otherwise, why would he be spreading Milo's ashes? This still leaves a few questions though. What was with the URL not matching the website's displayed title? And who is 26? Well, let's start with 26, as that's probably the easiest thing to figure out. Users on Reddit managed to find an account with a similar name on a website called Fark, which is kind of like a predecessor to Reddit. There was an account named Angel26, which, big whoop, there's an account with the same two numbers in its name. It's not like it'll just have a blatant connection to Lake City Quiet Pills. Well, except it does. Quite plainly in the description of Angel26's account, It reads, dispensing Lake City quiet pills to lousy bastards in need of permanent rest since 1968. Located in hell. This account also appears to have a military history, just like Milo, and has a bunch of typing mannerisms that 26 has as well. So it's pretty safe to assume that these two are the same entity. This isn't really getting us anywhere, so let's take a step back and go to lakecityquietpills.com. There isn't anything we need to look at on the surface here, so let's take a look under the hood. Opening the website's source code reveals, first and foremost, a bunch of comments that don't have anything to do with the code itself. Comments like immediate need 8 to 10 Chinese/Korean, fluent Korean/dialect/accent details after contract, 12-week half-pay sequester on refusal were seen in the comments, along with another memento for Milo. A common reoccurrence was the acronym W/W, which showed up in quite a few comments. There's two trains of thought here. Some people think it means wants or warrants, and other people think it stood for wet work. The first one is pretty self-explanatory, but wet work just meant murder. Either way, these messages did not paint a good look for Milo, 26, and anyone else mentioned in the comments. It was pretty obvious that this was, at best, mercenary work, or at worst, assassins. And just to completely cement that this was absolutely something shady going on September 30th, 2009, a new comment was left in the website's source code, sharing that someone had bricked Milo's iron key. An iron key is essentially just an encrypted flash drive, and judging by how someone went and bricked it for Milo, it's probably safe to assume that there was something he didn't want people seeing on it. Whether it was illegal or not, we'll never know. It wouldn't be until the beginning of 2010 where we get the next big turning point in the story. On January 12th, 2010, this comment was left. Happy New Year, everyone. We're having a birthday party for the old man on the 19th. Party starts at 1500 at the usual. Send your RSVP to Shade. FYI, we're booking a room for 3 days for anyone coming from out of area and overnight for locals. Come hoist one for Dutch Milo. Sounds like a grand old time, now doesn't it? Well, a week later, this message was left in the source code. We got 38 rooms in the Marriott on 46. Shade has the key cards for locals. Pick up at the party. Give your travel name to the desk and that's it. No ID needed since we're covering the bill. Keep room service under 500, okay? The phones there are not secure. Bus from the hotel leaves at 13:30. Car service vouchers for return trip when you're ready to crash. Don't DUI. This was left in the source code on January 18th and details the weirdest instructions for a party I've ever seen. Like, who needs a fake name to travel, and who needs to worry about phones being secure? Now, there's something important about the current date that makes this mystery go from stupid to insane. January 19th, 2010 was the day that Hamas leader Mahmoud al-Mabhouh was murdered. Probably said that wrong, but whatever. Mahmoud would have been flying in around 3 p.m. that day, the same time mentioned in the comment from 26. And there were over 24 assassins linked to Mahmoud's death. This is just too many coincidences to write off. How do you predict a man's death along with the time he would arrive in a country and how many assassins would be involved? Well, some people started thinking the obvious.
It's simple. He didn't.
There would also be another update 2 weeks later, detailing party expenses. But the only thing worth mentioning is the closing line. You all did Dutch Milo proud. Thanks. Surely this means that Milo had planned this all along, and just like the Israelis, wanted Mahmoud dead. By spring of 2010, the website would finally start gaining traction from Redditors discovering everything just mentioned in the source code. Also around this time, the website would have its source code encrypted, and eventually taken offline for good, and removed from the Wayback Machine. So what the hell was this? Was it really a front used for assassins to communicate with each other? Was it an elaborate hoax? Or was it just a weird way to get attention on the website? What if I told you it was none of these options, and instead a third-party option that no one up until 2019 had even thought of? So while people were stalking 26 to the ends of the earth and figuring out every single website he was signed up to, I mean, seriously, did we need to know he was signed up to Yahoo Answers? Someone stumbled onto a forum called Drunken Stepfather, where 26 had an account. Drunken Stepfather was apparently just another jailbait website, and I don't wish to see any of that, so I'm not going to make an account. But 26 had an account there, and that's what matters. YouTuber Nexpo paid someone to hack that forum to get information on 26, and find out who he really is. Turned out that 26 is a man named Mike. It also turned out that Milo had an account on here, and his real name was also Mike. There's actually a bunch of accounts on here from this guy named Mike. Once this guy was found, there was a bunch of other information that surfaced too, such as his obsession with Second Life. Second Life was a huge role-playing game back in the early to mid 2000s, and Mike would take a part in it not just as one character, but as many of them. Mike has to have something like dissociative identity disorder, or one of those personality disorders. Otherwise, how do you come up with something like this and keep it up for so long? Interestingly enough, Mike had a faction called the Mercs he would roleplay as in Second Life, and they spoke exactly how they did in the comments in the source code. Holy fucking LARP. This does mean that the assassination of Mahmoud is completely unrelated to Lake City Quiet Pills though. Honestly, I think it's weird how more people didn't see this coming, because unless every character lived in the same house, or was entering and exiting that house every single day, how would the source code update with new comments? I am 99% sure that you can't change a website's source code permanently unless you have the HTML that is being hosted. So it wouldn't make sense for there to be multiple different people able to communicate unless they were coming over every time they had an update. I don't know, maybe I'm just wrong and I'm spouting nonsense. So that's everything Tier 2 has to offer. Well, almost everything. I tried writing my script a bit differently this time, and it resulted in a much longer video than Tier 1. The only downside to it though is that it took me 3 whole months to write, but most of that was just me being a lazy bum though. Tier 3 has a few bangers that I already know about, so hopefully that one won't take as long as this one did. And if you don't want to get bored of checking my channel for the next 3 months, there's this really cool thing you could do to receive notifications when I upload that video. So what you do is you press that big button that says subscribe, and then you press the bell, and then you press the option that says all. That way you also get notifications for my other videos that—
Thank you for your love. Thank you for the heart.